The council chamber was silent, too silent for a room filled with representatives from 40 different species. Mino stood at the center platform, his three eyes scanning the worried faces around him. As High Chancellor, he had led the Galactic Council for 20 cycles. He had seen disputes, trade wars, and minor conflicts, but nothing like this. They have taken another system, Minho announced. His voice carried through the massive hall without need for amplification. The Kareth cluster is lost. All 7 planets. 12 billion souls. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some delegates clicked their mandibles in distress. Others released pheromones of fear that the air filters quickly removed. Taman, standing guard near the main entrance, tightened his grip on his plasma rifle. He was Vraxian, a species bred for security and combat. His scaled skin was dark blue, almost black, and his eyes could see in 17 different spectrums. But none of his abilities helped against the enemy they now faced, the Ravagers. That was what the Council called them. Machines that consumed everything. They arrived without warning, dismantled planets for resources, and moved on. No one knew where they came from. No one knew how to stop them. "We must evacuate the outer territories," said one delegate, a floating jellyfish-like creature from the Mistral system. "Pull our forces back to the core worlds." "And abandon trillions?" Another delegate snapped. This one was insectoid with 4 arms that gestured angrily. "We are the Galactic Council. We protect all member species. We cannot protect anyone if we are destroyed," Minho said calmly. He had learned long ago that panic spread faster than any disease. "Our fleets have engaged the Ravagers 17 times. We have lost 17 times. They adapt to our weapons. They learn our tactics. Every battle makes them stronger." Taman had seen the footage from those battles. Ships torn apart like paper, stations melted into slag. The Ravagers moved with terrible efficiency. Their formations perfect, their aim flawless. They were not cruel. They did not torture or take pleasure in destruction. They simply consumed like a storm or a flood. Impersonal. Unstoppable. "There must be something," a small voice said from the back. All eyes turned to Jiwoo. She was Keltharian, a species known for scholarship and history. Her fur was silver, marking her as elderly by her people's standards. She walked slowly to the speaking platform, her tail balancing her movements. In the old records, the ancient texts, there are stories. Mingo's tone was not unkind, but it was dismissive. "Ambassador Jiwoo, we need weapons. We need strategy. We need the first travelers," Jiwoo interrupted. Several delegates gasped. Interrupting the High Chancellor was a serious breach of protocol. But Jiwoo continued. "The legends speak of them, the ones who came before. They explored the galaxy when our ancestors were still learning to make fire. They built wonders. They had technology we still cannot understand. Myths," Minho said flatly. "Children's tales, are they?" Jiwoo's eyes were bright. "Every species in this chamber has the same stories. The first travelers who walked on 2 legs, who had no fur, no scales, no natural weapons, who were soft and weak but whose minds were sharp as stars. They called themselves humans." Taman felt a strange sensation. His people had those stories too. Old songs about the Skywalkers who taught the first Vraxians to look up at the stars. He had always assumed they were just myths. Every culture had creation legends. "Even if humans existed," another delegate said, "they are gone. Vanished thousands of cycles ago. Their ruins are scattered across the galaxy, but we find no bodies, no proof they were real, just empty structures. Strange machines that no longer work. Perhaps they left something behind," Jiwoo pressed. "The legends say their weapons could crack worlds. Their ships could cross the galaxy in heartbeats. If we could find just one intact human facility." "Enough." Minho's voice was sharp. "We will not waste resources chasing ghosts. We need real solutions. This council is adjourned. Military commanders remain for tactical planning." The delegates filed out slowly. Taman watched Jiwoo leave, her shoulders slumped. He felt a pang of sympathy. She was not stupid. Her research was respected throughout the galaxy. But in times of war, people wanted concrete answers, not ancient mysteries. The tactical meeting lasted 4 hours. Taman stood guard listening to the grim reports. The Ravagers were not just advancing, they were accelerating. At current projections, they would reach the core worlds within a cycle, maybe less. When the commanders finally left, Minho sat alone in the empty chamber. Taman approached quietly. You do not believe the ambassador's theories, Taman said. It was not a question. I believe in what I can see, Minho replied. Plasma cannons, shield generators, fleet formations. Not bedtime stories about magical beings who disappeared. What if she is right? Minho looked at him with all three eyes. Then where are they, Commander? If humans were so powerful, why did they leave? Why did they abandon the galaxy? No, if they existed at all, they are long dead. We face this threat alone. Taman nodded and returned to his post. But something bothered him. A feeling he could not name. His species trusted instinct as much as logic, and his instincts were screaming that something was about to change. 3 days later, the feeling proved correct. Taman was in his quarters when the alarm sounded. Not the standard alert. This was the deep space monitoring system. Something had entered the sensor network at the edge of Council space. He ran to the command center. Officers of a dozen species worked frantically at their stations. Holographic displays showed the galaxy map with the Ravagers marked in red. They had taken another system. The colony of Sanctuary was under siege. What happened? Taman demanded. Sir, you need to see this. A young Keltharian officer pointed at a screen. We detected a massive warp signature beyond the Ravager front line. One of our deep space stations? No, sir. The signature is wrong. The pattern does not match any known species. The energy output is enormous. Taman leaned closer. The readings made no sense. Whatever had jumped into normal space was using technology that bent the rules of physics as the Council understood them. Could it be the Ravagers? He asked. A new type of ship? Negative. The signature is completely different. And, sir, the officer's voice shook. There are 12 of them. 12 massive vessels. They are moving toward Sanctuary. Get me visual confirmation. Now. The main display flickered. Long-range sensors struggled to resolve the image across such distance. But slowly shapes appeared. Ships. But not like any council vessel. They were elegant and brutal at the same time. Smooth hulls that somehow looked aggressive. And on each ship, displayed prominently on the side, was a symbol. A blue and green sphere. With white swirls across its surface, and above it a field of stars. Jiwoo burst into the command center. She must have run from her quarters. Her fur was disheveled, her breathing rapid, but her eyes were locked on the screen. That symbol, she whispered. I have seen it. In the ruins on Theta 9. In the archaeological sites on Veron Prime. I have seen it in every location where the first travelers left their mark. What does it mean? Taman asked, though he already suspected the answer. Jiwoo's voice was barely audible. It is their home. The planet where humans were born. They called it Earth. The command center fell silent. 40 pairs of eyes belonging to 20 different species stared at the impossible image on the screen. The ships began to accelerate toward Sanctuary, toward the Ravager fleet that was destroying another world. Taman felt his scales prickle. The myths were real. Humans were real. And after thousands of cycles of silence, they had returned. The only question was, why now? On the screen, the 12 human ships moved like hunting predators toward the unsuspecting Ravagers. And somewhere in the vastness of space, an ancient species prepared to remind the galaxy what it meant to fight. The alarms on Sanctuary never stopped screaming. Jiwoo covered her ears as another explosion rocked the evacuation center. She had been sent to oversee the civilian transport, to ensure that everyone who could be saved was saved. But there were too many people and not enough ships. Ambassador, we need to go now. Her security officer shouted over the noise. He was a young Vraxian, scales still bright green with youth. The Ravagers have breached the orbital stations. They will be here within the hour. Not without the children, Jiwoo said firmly. She pointed to a group of younglings huddled in the corner. They were Mistral, delicate floating creatures who pulsed with bioluminescence when frightened. Right now they were bright as stars. Get them on the next transport. Outside the reinforced walls, she could hear weapons fire. The defense forces were making their last stand. It was not going well. Nothing went well against the Ravagers. They just kept coming. Wave after wave, machines that felt no fear and took no rest. In orbit above Sanctuary, the battle was ending. Captain Hyun watched the tactical display with calm eyes. His crew called him the Ice Commander because nothing seemed to shake him. But inside he felt the familiar weight of command. Every decision meant life or death. Status report, he said quietly. 6 Council battleships destroyed. his tactical officer replied. She was human too, her dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her name was Yunji, and she had served with Hyun for 5 years. 3 more heavily damaged. The Ravager fleet is advancing on the planet. Council forces are in full retreat. Hyun nodded slowly. He stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, one of 12 ships that had traveled so far to reach this place. They had been watching the galaxy for a long time from their hidden worlds, waiting, preparing. And when the call finally came, the distress signal in the old protocols that only humans remembered, they had come. All ships, this is Hyun. Weapons free. Execute attack pattern Delta 7. The human fleet moved. They had been holding position just beyond sensor range, watching the battle unfold. Now they accelerated toward the Ravager formation with sudden terrible speed. The Ravagers detected them immediately. Hundreds of machine ships turned to face this new threat. They calculated ranges, estimated firepower, and prepared their optimal attack formation. The Ravagers were perfect at calculations. They never made mistakes, but they had never fought humans before. Contact in 30 seconds, Yunji said. They are not evading. They are moving to intercept. Good, Hyun said. That means they are predictable. Fire as soon as we are in range. The Indomitable's weapons were unlike anything the Council used. They did not rely on plasma or lasers. Instead, they used principles that bent space itself. When the first salvo fired, it created ripples in reality that tore through the Ravager shields as if they were paper. 3 machine ships simply ceased to exist, deleted from space by weapons they could not understand. The Ravager fleet hesitated. For the first time in the war, they encountered something they could not immediately analyze. Their formations broke as they tried to adapt, tried to calculate, tried to understand what they faced. All ships focus fire on the command vessel, Hyun ordered. Every Ravager fleet had one, a central intelligence that coordinated the others. Destroy it and the fleet would fragment. Yunji analysis. The command ship is the large one at the center. It is heavily shielded. She worked quickly at her console, but there is a pattern in its movements. It stays exactly 3,000 kilometers from the front line. It is avoiding direct combat. Smart, Hyun said, but not smart enough. Prepare the lance strike. On the planet below, Jiwoo felt the ground shake. She looked up through the transparent ceiling of the evacuation center. The sky was full of fire, ships exploding, energy weapons creating brief new suns. But something was different. The Council ships were not dying anymore. Something else was up there. Something was fighting the Ravagers and winning. Get those children on board, she ordered. Now. The transport lifted off just as the defense wall collapsed. Ravager machines poured through, their metal bodies reflecting the fires around them. They moved with perfect efficiency toward the evacuation center. Jiwoo ran with the last group of civilians, her old legs burning with effort. They would not make it. She knew this with terrible certainty. The machines were too fast. Then the sky above them split open. A ship descended through the smoke and fire, unlike any vessel Jiwoo had ever seen. It was sleek and predatory, bristling with weapons. Hatches opened along its sides and figures dropped out on jets of controlled thrust. Soldiers, wearing armor that covered them completely. Each one carried weapons that hummed with restrained power. They landed between the civilians and the Ravagers and immediately opened fire. Doyen hit the ground running. This was his first real combat drop, though he had trained for years. He was young for a Marine, only 23, but he had scored top marks in every simulation. Real combat was different. The noise was overwhelming. The fear was real, but so was the purpose. Squad 3, defensive formation, his sergeant barked through the comm. Protect those civilians. Doyen raised his rifle and fired. The magnetic accelerator sent projectiles downrange at hypersonic speeds. They punched through the Ravager armor with ease. He dropped 3 machines before they could adjust, but more kept coming. Always more. They are adapting, someone shouted. Shields coming online. Switch to plasma rounds, the sergeant ordered. Keep them off balance. The human Marines moved like a single organism. When one reloaded, another covered. When one flanked, others provided suppression fire. They fought with a coordination that seemed almost choreographed, but it was just training. Thousands of hours of training for this exact moment. Jiwoo watched in amazement. The soldiers moved around the civilians, herding them toward safety, while simultaneously holding back the Ravager advance. One soldier, she noticed a young one, stopped to help a wounded Keltharian to his feet before resuming fire. Who are you? She called out. Doyun turned his head briefly. His helmet translated the question automatically. Human, he said simply. United Earth Defense Force, now get to the transport, please. We will hold them here. In orbit, Hyun watched the command ship explode. The lance strike had worked perfectly. A focused beam of energy, concentrated into a point smaller than an atom, had penetrated every layer of shielding and detonated the ship's reactor from the inside. The Ravager fleet immediately lost cohesion. Individual ships began operating independently, making them easier to target. The human fleet pressed the advantage ruthlessly. Enemy forces are retreating, Yunji reported. There was wonder in her voice. The Ravagers are running away. Confirm that, Hyun said, confirmed. All Ravager vessels are withdrawing from the system. They are fleeing. The bridge crew remained silent. They were professionals. But Hyun could feel their satisfaction. The Ravagers had never retreated before. Never fled. Never shown anything resembling fear. Until now. Send recovery teams to the planet's surface, Hyun ordered. Medical support and engineers. These people will need help. On Sanctuary, the last Ravager machines powered down as their connection to the fleet was severed. The human Marines secured the area quickly and efficiently. Doyen helped guide survivors toward the landing ships, which were now arriving in greater numbers. Jiwoo approached him slowly. She had studied humans all her life. Read every scrap of text, examined every artifact, but nothing had prepared her for actually seeing one. They were smaller than she expected. No natural weapons. No armor plating or thick scales. They looked vulnerable. But they had just driven away the Ravagers. I need to speak with your commander, she said carefully. Doyen nodded and activated his comm. After a brief exchange, he turned back to her. Captain Hyun will meet with council representatives. But ma'am, if you do not mind me asking, what is this place called? Sanctuary, Jiwoo replied. Good name, Doyen said. He removed his helmet, revealing a young human face. Dark hair, dark eyes, and a gentle smile. We will make sure it stays that way. 2 hours later, Jiwoo found herself in a landing bay facing Captain Hyun. He was older than Doyen, with gray at his temples and eyes that had seen much. He bowed slightly, a gesture of respect. Ambassador Jiwoo, he said through a translation device. His voice was calm and measured. I am Captain Hyun of the Indomitable. I apologize for the abrupt introduction. You saved us, Jiwoo said simply. You saved tens of thousands of lives. We thought you were legends, stories we told children, but you are real. We are real, Hyun confirmed. And we heard your distress call. The old emergency protocols. We came as soon as we could. Where have you been? The question burst out of Jiwoo before she could stop it. For thousands of cycles, we searched the stars. We found your ruins, your abandoned stations. But never you. Where did humans go? Hyun was quiet for a long moment. That is a complicated answer. One that should be shared with your full council. But I can tell you this, Ambassador. We never left. We have been watching, waiting, and when the galaxy needed help, we came. Behind him, Jiwoo could see other humans moving through the landing bay. Engineers setting up medical stations. Soldiers distributing supplies. Scientists examining the Ravager wreckage with curious eyes. They worked with quiet efficiency, helping people they had never met before. The Galactic Council had never been so full. Every delegate was present, along with military commanders, scientists, and historical scholars. They all wanted to see the humans. Minho sat in his central seat trying to maintain composure. His 3 eyes watched as the human delegation entered the chamber. Admiral Sujin led them. She was a tall woman with black hair streaked with silver, wearing a uniform of dark blue with silver insignia. Behind her walked an elderly human man, slightly bent with age, carrying a data tablet. Captain Hyun and Dr. Yoonji followed, along with a security detail. Taemin stood at attention near the entrance. He had seen the combat footage from Sanctuary. Watched the human Marines fight with a skill that seemed beyond training. Watched their ships maneuver in ways that defied standard tactics. He was no longer skeptical. He was cautious. Welcome to the Galactic Council, Minho said formally. I am High Chancellor Minho. On behalf of all member species, I thank you for your intervention at Sanctuary. You saved many lives. Admiral Sujin bowed slightly. Thank you, Chancellor. I am Admiral Sujin, commander of the 1st Expeditionary Fleet. This is Professor Kiwan, our chief historian. Captain Hyun, you have already met, and Dr. Yoonji, our lead scientist. Please sit. Minho gestured to the prepared seats. We have many questions. I hope you will help us understand. Where have humans been? Why did you leave? And why return now? Sujin glanced at Professor Kiwon. The old man nodded and stood slowly. When he spoke, his voice was stronger than his frail body suggested. To understand why we left, you must understand when we left, Kiwon began. It was approximately 4,000 cycles ago by your calendar. Humanity had just developed faster than light travel. We were excited, naive, ready to explore the galaxy and meet new friends. Holographic displays activated around the chamber, showing ancient Earth, a blue and green planet, beautiful and vibrant. But our early exploration revealed something terrible. Kiwon continued. We detected traces of a massive conflict. Entire civilizations wiped out. Worlds burned to cinders. And we found the cause. The first Ravager outbreak. The display changed, showing machine swarms consuming a planet. The delegates murmured. This footage was older than their oldest records. We were not ready to fight them, Kiwon said quietly. We were barely a spacefaring species. Our weapons were primitive. Our ships were slow. If the Ravagers had found us then, humanity would have ended before it truly began. So you ran, Minho said. Not an accusation, just a statement. We made a choice, Kiwon replied. A difficult choice. Our scientists predicted the Ravagers would go dormant. That there would be centuries, perhaps millennia, before they awakened again. We could use that time to prepare, to grow strong, to become ready. But you disappeared completely. Jiwoo spoke up from her seat. We found your colonies abandoned. Your stations empty. It was as if you simply vanished. That was intentional, Sujin said, taking over from Kiwon. We could not risk the Ravagers detecting us, so we went dark. We dismantled our colonies, destroyed our stations, erased every trace of our presence. Then we retreated to a region of space that we called the Dark Zone, an area with no habitable planets, no resources worth taking, a place the Ravagers would never look. For 4,000 cycles? A delegate asked. You hid for 4,000 cycles? We did more than hide, Dr. Yoonji said. She activated her own display, showing complex schematics. We evolved. Not just technologically, but biologically. We used genetic engineering to make ourselves stronger, faster, smarter. We developed artificial intelligence to enhance our thinking. We built ships that could cross the galaxy in days instead of months. You changed yourselves, Taemin said slowly. He was thinking about the combat footage. The impossible reflexes, the perfect coordination. You are not the same species that left. We are still human, Sujin said firmly. We still dream, still hope, still fear. We still value life and freedom. But yes, we adapted, we had to. The enemy we faced was too strong for the humans we were. So we became the humans we needed to be. Minho leaned forward. But you left the rest of the galaxy to develop alone. You could have warned us. You could have prepared us. Instead, you vanished and let us stumble blindly into the threat. We left markers, Kiwon said quietly. Instructions hidden in our ruins. Technologies that your scientists could study and learn from. We hoped that by the time the Ravagers awakened, the galaxy would be united and strong. Instead, we were unprepared, Minho said bitterly. We have lost billions. Entire species wiped out, and you watched from your hiding place. The chamber fell silent. It was Hyun who finally spoke. You are right to be angry, he said. We made a choice 4,000 cycles ago, and people today are suffering for it. But we are here now. We came when we detected the distress signal. We came to help. Why now? Another delegate demanded. Why not sooner? We have been fighting the Ravagers for cycles. Because we only just detected your signal, Yoonji explained. You used the old emergency protocols, the ones from before humanity went dark. Those protocols use quantum entanglement communication, instant across any distance. But the network was dormant for thousands of years. When Ambassador Jiwoo accessed the ancient archives on Terminus Prime 3 weeks ago, she accidentally reactivated one of the old relay stations. That signal reached us, and we came as fast as we could. Jiwoo's eyes widened. The station in the archives sublevel. I thought it was just an artifact. I was cataloging it. You saved the galaxy, Sujin said with a small smile. By being curious about the past, you gave us a way to find you in the present. Pretty words, Taemin said harshly. But how do we know we can trust you? You are not the humans from our legends. You are something new. Something changed. You have weapons we cannot understand, ships that move impossibly fast. For all we know, you are as dangerous as the Ravagers. Sujin met his eyes calmly. Trust must be earned. We understand that. But Commander, think about Sanctuary. We could have stayed hidden, could have let the Ravagers destroy everything and remain safe in our dark zone. Instead, we came. We fought, we risked our lives for people we had never met. Why? Minho asked. Why risk everything for strangers? Because it is right, Sujin said simply. Because we are human and humans help. It is what we have always done. It is what we will always do. Kiwan spoke again, his old voice carrying through the chamber. We made mistakes. 4,000 cycles ago, our ancestors chose isolation over engagement. They thought they were protecting humanity, but they forgot that the galaxy is home to all of us. By saving only ourselves, we abandoned our responsibility to others. He looked around the room, meeting the eyes of delegates from dozens of species. We cannot change the past, Kiwan continued, but we can shape the future. We came back because hiding was wrong, because no matter how different we have become, we are still part of this galaxy, and when our neighbors are in danger, we do not look away. Beautiful sentiment, Minho said, but sentiment does not win wars. What can you actually do? The Ravager fleet that attacked Sanctuary was small. A scouting force. Our intelligence suggests the main fleet numbers in the thousands. Can your 12 ships defeat that? No, Sujin admitted. 12 ships cannot save the galaxy, but 12 ships and the Galactic Council fleet together? That is a different story. We did not come to save you. We came to fight with you. You want to combine forces? A military commander asked. Our technology is incompatible. Our tactics are different. How would that even work? We share knowledge, Yunji said eagerly. You have experience fighting the Ravagers. You know their patterns, their weaknesses. We have weapons and sensors they have not adapted to yet. Together we can create strategies they cannot predict. And what do you want in return? Minho asked suspiciously. Technology? Resources? Territory? A place in this galaxy, Sujin said. After 4,000 cycles of isolation, we want to come home. We want to be part of the galactic community again, not as myths or legends, but as partners. Jiwoo stood up, her silver fur catching the light. I believe them, she said clearly. I have spent my life studying humans. Their history shows a species that values cooperation and sacrifice. Yes, they changed themselves. Yes, they made mistakes, but they came back. That matters. They came back because we activated their relay by accident, Taman pointed out. If the ambassador had not been curious, they would still be hiding. Maybe, Hyun said. Or maybe we were waiting for the right moment. For the galaxy to develop enough that we could work together as equals, not as saviors and saved. The relay activation showed us you were ready. The debate continued for hours. Delegates argued for and against trust. Military commanders questioned human capabilities. Scientists wanted to study human technology. Through it all, the human delegation remained patient, answering questions, sharing information within reason, and making their case. Finally, Minho called for a vote. The question is simple. Do we accept humanity's offer of alliance? Do we fight alongside them against the Ravagers? The vote was not unanimous. Some species remained suspicious. Others feared human power. But the majority voted yes. Then it is settled, Minho said. He looked at Sujin. Welcome to the Galactic Council, Admiral. I hope you are as good at war as you claim. We will find out soon enough, Sujin replied grimly. The Trion system was beautiful. 3 inhabited planets orbited a yellow star, each world home to billions. Orbital stations connected the planets, creating a web of civilization that had stood for 1,000 cycles. Gardens floated in space powered by solar collectors. Art installations drifted between the traffic lanes celebrating peace and unity. In 3 days, all of it would burn. Jihoon checked his fighter systems for the 10th time. Everything was green. Weapons loaded, shields charged, engines purring with restrained power. He was nervous, though he would never admit it to his squadron. They called him Phoenix because he always came back, no matter how bad the mission. He hoped that luck would hold. Phoenix, this is Control. Admiral Sujin's voice came through his comm. Status check. All fighters ready, Admiral, Jihoon replied. He looked out through his canopy at the assembled fleet. Human ships sleek and predatory, council ships blocky and powerful, hundreds of vessels from 40 different species, forming the largest defensive fleet ever assembled. We are ready to light them up. Good hunting, Phoenix. Control out. On the flagship bridge, Sujin studied the tactical display with grim focus. The Ravager fleet was 12 hours out. Sensors counted over 2,000 enemy ships, all converging on Tryon. The humans had brought every available vessel, but they numbered only 30 ships. The Council fleet was larger, but badly damaged from previous engagements. We are outnumbered 6-1, her tactical officer reported. Possibly worse. Some of those Ravager signatures are bigger than anything we have faced before. Numbers are not everything, Sujin said, though she did not fully believe it. How are the Council forces integrating? Better than expected. Commander Taman has done excellent work coordinating the fleet formations. Captain Hyun reports that his group is ready. Hyun stood on the bridge of the Indomitable watching his display. He had been given command of the forward battle group, a mixed force of human and Council ships. It was a test. Could two completely different military doctrines work together in the chaos of combat? They were about to find out. All ships, this is Hyun. Final equipment check. Confirm your understanding of the battle plan. Responses came back quickly. The Council captains were professional, though many still viewed the human tactics with suspicion. Human strategies relied on mobility and unpredictability. Council tactics favored strong defensive formations and overwhelming firepower. Combining them had been challenging. On the surface of Tryon 2, Colonel Nari oversaw the evacuation of the capital city. Millions of civilians needed to be moved to underground shelters or transported off-world. There was not enough time for everyone. Priority to the young and injured, she ordered her troops. A mix of human Marines and Council soldiers worked together, guiding crowds with practiced efficiency. Keep them calm. No panic. Doyen was there, helping load children onto transports. He had requested ground assignment, even though it meant he might not escape if the defense failed. A young Keltharian mother clutched his arm. Will we be safe? She asked, her fur matted with stress. We will do everything we can, Doyen promised. It was the only honest answer he could give. Behind them, defensive turrets rose from hidden bunkers. Colonel Nari was preparing for the worst. In space, the moment arrived. Sensors screamed as the Ravager fleet dropped out of warp. They appeared like a swarm of locusts blotting out the stars, ship after ship perfectly coordinated, moving with mechanical precision toward the 3 planets. All hands to battle stations, Sujin ordered. Her voice was calm, but her hands gripped the armrests of her chair. Execute the plan. May we all see tomorrow. The human Council fleet did not wait for the Ravagers to reach them. Instead, they accelerated forward, breaking into 3 separate battle groups. It looked like suicide, charging toward an enemy force that outnumbered them so badly. But it was calculated. Forward group, this is Hyun. Engage when in range. Remember, hit and run. We are not trying to destroy them. We are trying to slow them down. His group struck the Ravager vanguard like a hammer. Human weapons fired first, their reality-bending technology shredding through the first wave of enemy ships. Council plasma cannons followed, exploiting the gaps. The Ravagers tried to adapt, but the tactics kept changing. Break formation, scatter pattern, Hyun ordered. The ships split apart, forcing the Ravagers to divide their attention. Phoenix Squadron, you are cleared to engage. Jihoon grinned behind his helmet. Phoenix Squadron, follow me in. His fighter screamed forward, weaving between capital ships. Ravager point defense tracked him, but he was too fast. He fired missiles at their sensors, temporarily blinding a heavy cruiser. His squadron followed, each pilot targeting critical systems rather than trying for kills. We are mosquitoes, Jihoon said over the squadron channel. Annoying, persistent mosquitoes. The battle became chaos. The Ravagers fought with their usual precision, but they were confused. The enemy kept changing tactics, kept doing things that made no logical sense. Human ships would charge straight at them, then suddenly veer away. Council ships would hold position like they were making a stand, then retreat before the Ravagers could surround them. But slowly, inevitably, the numbers began to tell. For every Ravager ship destroyed, 3 more took its place. The human Council fleet was being pushed back toward the planets. We cannot hold them much longer, Taman reported from his command ship. His voice was strained. They are adapting to our tactics. I know, Sujin replied. She had been counting on this. The entire battle had been designed around one simple truth. You cannot stop a force this large. You can only delay it. All ships begin the withdrawal. Fall back to the planet defense perimeter. The fleet retreated in good order, making the Ravagers fight for every kilometer. Behind them, the 3 planets of Trion waited, now surrounded by additional defense platforms and weapon satellites. But Sujin was not relying on those defenses. She was relying on something else, something that had been hidden for 4,000 cycles. Dr. Yunji, status on the network? She asked. Yunji was on one of the orbital stations, working frantically with council scientists. Around her, ancient human technology hummed to life for the first time in millennia. "We are close," Yunji replied. "But Admiral, this is old technology. Really old. I cannot guarantee it will work." "It will work," Professor Kiwan said. He stood beside her, his aged hands moving across controls with surprising speed. "Our ancestors built things to last. Have faith." Around the Trion system, invisible to normal sensors, ancient satellites activated. They had been placed there thousands of years ago by the first human explorers. Buried in debris fields, hidden in asteroid belts, camouflaged on moons, a network of communication disruptors, designed to interfere with coordinated military operations. The Ravagers relied on constant communication to maintain their perfect formations. Each ship was part of a greater whole, controlled by central intelligences. If you could disrupt that communication even for a moment, you could break their coordination. "Network is live," Yunji announced, activating disruption pulse in 3, 2, 1 now. Across the system, the satellites pulsed. It was not an attack. It was noise. Pure information chaos transmitted on every frequency the Ravagers used. For 5 seconds, the enemy fleet lost contact with its command structure. 5 seconds was all Sujin needed. "All ships full attack. Target the command vessels. Now, now, now." The human council fleet surged forward again. Every ship focused fire on the largest Ravager vessels, the ones that coordinated the others. Without communication, the command ships could not call for support. They died quickly, explosions lighting up the darkness. The Ravager fleet fragmented. Individual ships began operating on their own, following pre-programmed behaviors but lacking the coordination that made them unstoppable. They were still dangerous. They still outnumbered the defenders. But now they were just machines, not a unified force. "It is working," Taman breathed. He watched as Ravager formations collapsed into chaos. "The network is working. Not for long," Sujin warned. "They will adapt. We have maybe an hour before they develop countermeasures. We need to end this now." Hyun saw the opportunity. A gap had opened in the Ravager lines, straight to the heart of their fleet. The largest command ship, the one that controlled regional operations. Destroying it would cripple the Ravagers in this entire sector. But to reach it, someone would have to fly through a gauntlet of enemy fire. It would be a suicide run. "Indomitable to Admiral Sujin," Hyun said calmly. "I am going after the central command ship. Request that all forward group vessels follow my lead." "Captain, you will not survive that run," Sujin said. "I know." Hyun's voice was peaceful, "But someone has to do it. And I am already here." "Negative," Sujin began, but Hyun cut her off. "Tell my crew they served with honor. Indomitable out." He cut the channel and addressed his bridge crew. "All hands abandon ship. Get to the escape pods." "That is an order." "Sir, we cannot," Yunji started. "That is an order, Lieutenant. This ship needs to make a run and I need you all alive to help rebuild after we win. Go. I can pilot her alone for what needs to be done." The crew hesitated, then began moving to the escape pods. Yunji was the last to leave. She saluted Hyun, tears on her face, then ran. Alone on the bridge, Hyun plotted his course. Straight through the enemy fleet, maximum speed. 3 weeks after the Battle of Trion, the Galactic Council chambers were full again. But this time the mood was different. There was exhaustion, yes. Grief for the loss, certainly. But also hope. Fragile, careful hope. Minho stood at his platform, looking older than he had before. War aged everyone, even those who lived for centuries. His 3 eyes surveyed the assembly with a mix of pride and sorrow. "The Ravagers are scattered," he announced. "Our combined fleets have pushed them back across 7 sectors. They still hold territory, but they are no longer advancing. For the first time in this war, we are winning." Applause echoed through the chamber. Delegates clicked, chirped, and hummed their approval in dozens of different ways. But Minho raised his hand for silence. "We paid a heavy price. 47 ships lost. 20,000 personnel dead, 3 stations destroyed. But we held, and we held because we fought together, human and council, working as one. He turned toward the human delegation. Admiral Sujin stood with Captain Hyun, who still bore bandages from his injuries. Dr. Yoonji was there, along with Professor Kiwon and Colonel Nari. Do-yoon stood at attention in his dress uniform, the youngest human in the group. Ambassador Jiwoo was right, Minho said, and the elderly Keltharian sat straighter in her seat. She believed when we did not. She trusted when we were skeptical, and because of her faith, humanity returned to us when we needed them most. Jiwoo's fur rippled with embarrassment, but there were tears in her eyes. However, Minho continued, we cannot ignore certain realities. Humanity is powerful. Their technology surpasses ours in many ways. Their tactics are effective, but they are also different from the humans of legend. They have changed themselves in ways that many find disturbing. Murmurs ran through the chamber. This was the difficult conversation that everyone had been avoiding. The humans had been heroes at Tryon. But what came after heroism? What came after the crisis? Which is why we must decide, Minho said. What is humanity's place in this galaxy? Are they allies, partners? Something else? Taemin stood from his seat. The Vraxian commander had fought beside humans at Tryon. He had seen them bleed and die. His opinion carried weight. I was the first to doubt them, Taemin said honestly. I saw their power and feared it. But I also fought beside them. I watched Captain Hyun sacrifice himself to save millions. I saw young Marines like Do-yoon risk everything for strangers. Whatever humans have become, they are still people who care about others. But should we trust them? Another delegate asked. They hid for 4,000 cycles. They changed themselves. How do we know they will not decide we are too weak, too primitive, and simply take control? Admiral Sujin stepped forward. May I speak? Minho nodded. That fear is understandable, Sujin said. We are different from the humans you remember from legends. We are stronger, faster, enhanced in ways that probably seem frightening, but we did not change ourselves to dominate. We changed ourselves to survive, to prepare for a threat we knew was coming. She looked around the chamber, meeting eyes with delegates from different species. We could have stayed hidden, she continued, could have let the Ravagers destroy everything and remain safe in our isolation. But we came back because hiding was wrong. Because no matter how much we changed, we are still human, and humans help. Pretty words, a skeptical delegate said, but what do you want? You must want something in return for your assistance. Professor Kiwon stepped forward, leaning on his cane. The old human looked fragile compared to the enhanced soldiers beside him, but his voice carried authority. We want to come home, Kiwon said simply. Not to the places we left, those are yours now. But to this galaxy. We want to be part of the community again, to share our knowledge and learn from yours, to trade, to talk, to live alongside you as neighbors. You want council membership, Minho said. We want to earn council membership, Sujin corrected. We understand that trust must be rebuilt. We are willing to be patient, to prove ourselves through actions, not words. Jiwoo stood up. I move that humanity be granted provisional membership in the Galactic Council, with full voting rights to be considered after a trial period of 10 cycles. I second that motion, Taemin said immediately. The debate that followed was heated. Some delegates argued that humans had already proven themselves at Tryon. Others insisted that more time was needed. A few remained convinced that humanity was too dangerous to integrate. But eventually, the vote was called. The result was not unanimous, but it was decisive. Humanity would be granted provisional membership. Minho looked at Sujin. Congratulations, Admiral. Welcome to the Galactic Council. I hope this is the beginning of a long partnership. As do we, Sujin replied, bowing respectfully. Now, Minho continued, there is another matter. The humans have offered to share the location of their homeworld, the planet they call Earth. I propose that a diplomatic mission be sent to establish formal relations. I volunteer, Jiwoo said immediately. As do I, Taemin added. Over the next 3 weeks, a joint human council mission was prepared. The ship would carry delegates from 20 species, along with scientists, historians, and military observers. They would travel to the Dark Zone, to the hidden systems where humanity had survived for 4,000 cycles. Do-yoon was assigned as part of the security detail. He spent the journey getting to know the council personnel. They were nervous, curious, excited. Some asked him endless questions about human culture. Others just wanted to know if Earth had good food. You will have to see for yourselves, Do-yoon said with a smile. When the ship finally arrived at Earth's system, there was silence on the bridge. The planet hung in space, beautiful and blue, with white clouds swirling across its surface. But it was not alone. Dozens of orbital stations surrounded it. Cities on the moon glowed with lights. Massive construction yards built ships in the darkness between planets. "This is Earth?" Jiwoo breathed. "It is beautiful. It is home," Captain Hyun said. He had recovered enough to pilot the mission ship. "Come, we have much to show you." They landed at a facility built specifically for the delegation. As they emerged from the ship, they saw humans. Thousands of humans of every variation. Some looked like Sujin and Hyun, enhanced but still recognizably human. Others were different. Taller, shorter, adapted for different environments. Some had obvious cybernetic enhancements. Others looked completely baseline. "We are not one people anymore," Dr. Yoonji explained to the fascinated delegates. "We are dozens of subspecies, each adapted to different needs. But we are all still human. We still share the same basic values." Over the following days, the delegates toured Earth. They visited cities where humans and artificial intelligences worked together. They saw gardens growing food in ways that defied normal biology. They met human children learning alongside AI tutors. They saw art, music, and culture that blended 4,000 cycles of isolated development. Taemin stood in a museum dedicated to Earth's history. Ancient artifacts from before humans left for the stars, primitive rockets and early computers, a display showing the decision to go dark and the faces of the leaders who made that terrible choice. They knew they would never see the result, Taemin said quietly. The ones who decided to hide. They sacrificed everything so that future generations could survive. "That is humanity," Professor Kiwon said. He had been following Taemin through the museum. "We plant trees knowing we will never sit in their shade. We make choices that benefit those who come after us. It is what we do." "It is what all of us should do," Taemin replied. On the final day of the visit, Minho addressed a gathering of humans and council delegates. "I came here with doubts," he admitted. "I saw humanity as dangerous, as too different. But I was wrong. You are different, yes, but you are also familiar. You care about your young. You create art, you laugh and cry and hope. You are not myths anymore. You are not legends. You are just people, trying to do your best in a difficult universe." He paused, his three eyes shining with emotion. The Galactic Council was formed to unite the species of this galaxy, to prove that different peoples could work together for common goals. Humanity's return reminds us why we built the Council in the first place, not to rule but to cooperate, not to dominate but to assist. "I propose," Minho continued, "that humanity's provisional status be ended, that they be granted full membership immediately. All in favor?" Every delegate raised their hand, paw, tentacle, or whatever appendage they possessed. The vote was unanimous. Admiral Sujin stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. "On behalf of all humanity, we accept. We promise to honor this trust, to work with you, not above you, to share our strength and accept our weaknesses. Together we will face whatever comes." The celebration that followed was a mixture of human and council traditions. Music from 40 different cultures played simultaneously, somehow blending into harmony. Food from hundreds of worlds was shared. Doyen found himself dancing with a young Keltharian, both of them laughing at their mutual inability to understand the other's rhythm. Jiwoo sat with Professor Kiwon, both of them watching the celebration with tired contentment. "You were right," Kiwon said, "about everything. You believed when no one else did." "I just remembered what humans were," Jiwoo replied, "and trusted that they still were underneath all the changes." "What will you do now?" Kiwon asked.